Hey everybody, welcome to my RV7 / Pete and Pole Air Camper YouTube channel. I've been trying to make this intro video now for probably a half hour, and I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and to the point. The reason I'm making these videos is because one, I like to build, and two, I really enjoy helping other people. So these videos will show you how I am building my airplane. Now, I'm not saying that I'm an expert, because I'm not, and I'm not saying that the way that I've built my airplane is the way that you should build yours. These are just for entertainment purposes. Maybe when you watch these, it will spark some ideas in your own mind on ways that you want to build your airplane. The other reason I'm making these videos is because I need help building my RV7. I can build the airplane myself. Financially, it would take a very long time to do it. I would rather not wait a very long time, because I want to use this airplane as a platform to travel around the country and help other people with their aircraft projects or with their aircraft maintenance. So in order for me to do that, I've set up a GoFundMe page and an Amazon wish list, and those links will be in the description of all of these RV videos. So if you feel moved enough when you watch these videos, if they've helped you and you feel motivated in return to help me, I'd appreciate your donation or your purchases from the wish list. So that's it. That's the mission of the airplane. Like I said, I'd like to use it as a platform to travel to people. They can reach out to me and say, hey, I'm building an RV whatever, I'm building a Pete and Pole air camper, I'm building a Stoll type airplane, I have a certified airplane that I need some help with, whatever it is. I would like to be able to fly to their shop, to their hangar, and be with them real time, hands-on, and try to help them as best I can. I might not be able to help. Maybe I show up and the only thing that I can do is help you move a wing from one side of the shop to the other. I'm okay with that. So that's the idea. And as a little thank you, as little as it is, this is an RV7 elevator skin, and if you make a donation or you purchase something from my wish list, I'd like to add your name to this skin, and ultimately, hopefully, I'll have it full of names, and those names and the skin will be mounted at my hangar, what I call Wall of Honor, just as a little recognition that these people were nice enough to help me with my project. So that's it. Again, these are the RV7 videos. You might be interested in checking out my Pete and Pole Air Camper videos as well. But that's it. All right, that's enough yip yap for now. I say we get to building some RVs. Here's a method that I like to use to find the center line of a part. So these are the fuel tank Z brackets, and the instructions tell you to mark a line down the center of each flange. So down the center of each of these flanges here, the van's instructions tell you to mark a center line. The way that I like to do it is very simple. Rather than taking a measurement across here and trying to find half of that, and assuming you get that measurement correct, and assuming you're good at math and you can actually figure out what half is, which I am not the best at, I just take a square and I'll take a guess. This is currently set exactly where it needs to be, but so I don't want to change it. But just to give you an idea, you lay it on and you take a guess of where center is. Tighten it down and make a mark. If I can get my marker to work, there we go. So there's the mark. Let's see if I can make that darker. Wow, that's horrible. So now if I flip it around and I mark it again from the other side, if this is exactly on center, this mark should be right over top of the mark that I just made. And it is, because like I said, I already have this set. If this was too long, if I had this set too long, you would end up with a mark out here, and then when you flipped it around, you would end up with the mark out here as well, and there'd be a gap between your two lines. So you keep adjusting this setting until you can go from one side like this, flip it around to the other side. I know this is cumbersome at the moment. And when you do that, you should get just one line. Now you know that this line is exactly centered on this part. Now to run that line down the length of the Z bracket, I just simply put it in my vise just to hold it. And then I'll use the square, and then I'll just, well, this marker does not want to play nice today. I'll just go ahead and mark my line right on down the center, just like that. And that's it. Now you can kind of assembly line, if you will, assembly line work the rest of these the same way. That's it. So now that line is perfectly centered, the length of the Z bracket on this leg or on this flange. Now I'm working on the attach angle brackets for the fuel tank. So as per the instructions, I have the brackets on the back side of the spar, the aft side of the spar. I have them pre-drilled as per the instructions, and I have them now clecoed to the spar. Let's see if this will show up. There's one of the brackets there. Now what I like to do with these Z brackets is I make a note of which way the Z angle faces according to the plan. So this bracket, the angle is facing inward. This bracket, the angle is facing out toward the tip. This is facing the tip. This one's facing the tip, and so on. I position them that way, even though they're underneath the spar. I position them in the same way, so when I bring them up here, even though they'll be flipped over, the angle will still be facing in the appropriate direction. It's just something I like to do. The other thing that I chose to do, and I had done this on the other wing, and it worked out really well. As per the instructions, you have your center line marked on the aluminum angle itself, and you can see that line through the holes here. The instructions tell you to put a cleco in it, clamp it, and then drill these holes. What I like to do is I use a drill bit that's slightly undersized. The holes in the spar are not drilled to the full size, they're undersized. This is a number 14 drill. This drill fits nicely into that hole. So what I like to do is I get my holes lined up using my line as a reference. I'll reach in underneath the wing. I'll hold the angle in place, and then I'll stick this drill on, and I'll just turn it by hand just enough to make a mark. And I'll do that on each one, just one hole. I'll get my lines lined up on these two holes, hold it in place, reach underneath the wing, hold the bracket in place, and then spin this number 14 drill bit to mark it. I just do one hole. I do that for each bracket location. I number each bracket on the spar, and as I pull these off one by one, I'll number them with the matching numbers, so this bracket will go back in its location and so on. Now that I have the hole marked and I have each location marked, I'll pull them off one at a time, mark the bracket. Then I'll take this marked hole, center punch it exactly where I made the mark, and drill it on the drill press to the full size, the number 12. Then I'll bring each bracket back and I'll cleco the hole that I drilled, and I'll cleco this hole that's already existing, and then I'll final size drill this one. Once these two are both clecoed, I'll pull this one out and drill it, put it back, and then final drill this one. I'll go over that real time here in a minute, but let me get these first initial holes pre-drilled. Alright, so I have my brackets back in place. The Z brackets are back underneath the spar. The center hole for each bracket here was pre-drilled as per the plans. This hole, as I explained, I had drilled this in the drill press. I had my bracket in. I had the lines lined up underneath the holes. And I marked this with the drill bit, took the brackets off, center punched that mark, and then drilled each hole to full size on the drill press. Brought the brackets back, clecoed them in place. Now I'm going to double check my line on these holes, and then final drill these with the spar to final size. So here my two clecos are in. This line looks really good where it is, so I'm just going to add some additional support with my hand to hold it, make sure my fingers are out of the way, and drill it. Alright, so now, alright, that hole's been drilled to full size, the number 12, so now I have to go up to a different size cleco. This is a bigger cleco than the black ones. This is, I believe these are gold, whatever the next bigger size is. I'll put this in the hole that I just drilled, and now I can final drill the center. To the bigger size cleco, and now I'll do this one. And that's that. So now I'll go ahead and do the rest of these on down the line, and I'll be all set. So here's a Z bracket in work. You can see here where I have found center. Let me see if I can lay that down maybe. So again, there's my line that I found, that I used my square to find center and marked it. And then I used the square as well to find center from the entire length, using the same idea with the square, just laying it on here, marking a line, laying it on here, marking the line. And if the lines don't lay one on top of the other, the length is incorrect, and you keep adjusting it until you have your line centered. From there, I used the center punch, marked the location with the center punch, and then I used a really super small drill bit just to make sure that it found that center punch absolutely perfect and drilled that really small hole. From that small pilot hole, I stepped it up to the 1/8 inch hole that you see here. I did the same thing on this leg, found the center, punched it, center punched it, used that really super small drill bit to make sure that it found that center punch mark perfectly, drilled it, stepped up to the 1/8 inch drill bit, drilled it, and then continued stepping it up to the full size number 12 here. So during that process, I went ahead and I drilled all three Let me show you how I did that. Here is a bracket in work. It's clecoed to the spar. It's underneath the spar as per the instructions. Here is the center hole that I had pre-drilled in the drill press. It's clecoed in place. Now this one is in work, so these holes have already been started. But at this point, when you have it clecoed, you would guide down through these holes and you'll find your marker line. You want to get that marker line centered on each of these two holes as best you can. And then what I like to do is I take a number 12 drill bit. Actually, it's smaller than that because these holes in the spar are not full size. Find a drill bit that will fit the hole of the spar. You drop that down in and spin it by hand, and it will leave a mark on or very close to your line. You do that for each location. Then when you uncleco the bracket, and again, I can't show you these because I can't show you on the actual part because I've already started drilling. So when you come back to your part, you will see on top of your black line, you will see that little drill bit indication that you had just made. And then you go through the same process. You take that little mark made from the drill bit and center punch it over your line. Now if it's not exactly on the line, that's okay. What that mark represents is the distance from this hole to this hole. If it's not exactly on the black line in this orientation, that's okay. You just punch it on your center line in that location. If you center this line within the hole of the spar and you twist that drill bit on it, that indication from the drill bit tip will be right on the black line. As long as it's close, that's fine. When you punch, you want to center punch on the line, on this black line here, because that is your center line for the bracket. So that's what I've done. I went ahead and I punched both locations, here and here. Came back with that super small drill bit, made sure that it nested inside that center punch mark, drilled it, went up to 1/8 inch, drilled it, and now I'm going to go up, I don't know if I'll go right to 12 or not, but I'll go up probably one more size, drill them, and then go up to the number 12 and go ahead and drill those. I already have a bracket in. This one is completed. After I got the number 12 holes drilled in it, I came back and clecoed the center one and either end, it doesn't matter. Cleco the center, cleco an end, and then you match drill the spar to that existing hole in the bracket up to number 12, and then cleco it and then match drill a number 12. So like this one here, I don't know if that will show, this is an 1/8 inch hole in the bracket itself. I just have this in here for demonstration. But all of my brackets are going to get drilled to number 12. Then I'll bring them back, cleco, cleco, match drill this hole, cleco, cleco, match drill this hole, just to bring the holes in the spar up to number 12. That ensures that this bracket is perfectly straight, it's perfectly centered, the holes are perfectly centered on the bracket flange, and then the holes in the bracket perfectly match the holes in the spar. I find it a lot easier and a lot more user-friendly for me to do it this way, and the holes end up being absolutely perfect. Okay, so here's my bracket. It's got the reference line across, and I had made the little indication with the drill bit on this line to give me the exact location for these two holes. I went ahead and punched that with the center punch. I used a really small drill bit. this little guy here, to find that center punched hole, drilled it, then I stepped up to 1/8 inch, which are the two that you see here, and now I'm going to final drill these with the number 12. Doing it this way, all three of these holes are exactly aligned with one another on this center line. So I'll do that. Let me drill these. There they are, perfectly centered, perfectly aligned. Of course, I'll go ahead and deburr these and then take them over to the wing and see how they fit. Another thing I want to note, just like I did with the ribs, each location for these on the spar, I had marked directly on the spar each location, number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. And then I mark the brackets to match. So this is number 1 for the number 1 location, number 2, number 3, and so on. Just so that I make sure that the brackets go in the exact same place that they came from when I took them off. So let me take these over there and get these fitted. Alright, so at this point, I've got all the brackets in place. They've been drilled to final size, and the holes in the spar have been drilled to match the holes in the Z brackets. So one final check, this is just something that I like to do before I disassemble these brackets. I just want to make sure that a bolt, the proper size bolt, will go through all these holes. Remember, the Z brackets are going to get nut plated on the back side. So the bolts are held in place with those nut plates. These holes in the spar and in the Z bracket are basically just through holes, but you want them to fit nice. You don't want to find out after you get your nut plates on the Z brackets and you start to attach the brackets to the spar that you can't get the bolt through. So I just like to test ahead of time just to make sure that I can get a bolt through the holes for all the brackets. That's it, just a test fit, and I'll do that with all the holes and all the brackets just to make sure that everything's aligned and the bolt will make it through. So I believe the next step is to take these out and start drilling them and riveting on the nut plates. Okay, nut plates. Here is how I deal with nut plates. What I like to do, I take a nut plate and I basically sacrifice it. By that I mean take a perfectly good nut plate and I run a tap through it. What that does, that allows you to run a bolt through it by hand, just like that. So now it's no more than a nut. And I've done this to 2 nut plates, this one in a different size that I used. I think it was used somewhere on the spar. But anywho, so what I do then, I have my sacrificed nut plate, screw that fits it, and some washers. So let's take the Z brackets again, just as an example. I still have the line in place for the holes. What I can do then, put my nut plate on, the washer's on the bolt. That just keeps the nut plate from bottoming on the bolt and instead of clamping onto the metal. Put my bolt in here, spin my nut plate on. And now all I have to do is line the holes in line with the marker line. Once I get the line down the center of the holes for the nut plate, I'll twist this around. Okay, that looks pretty good, just like that. And that's held down there pretty tight. So now I'll take my number 40 drill bit, just like I always do, and I'll just spin this around a little bit in each hole. And that leaves, I doubt that this will show, but that leaves a nicely centered mark on the black line. So now I can take this off. And move it to the next. And repeat the process again. Find that line and center it. That might be a little too tight. Alright, right about like that, and that looks really good. Spin this around a little bit. Make those indentations perfectly centered. And move on to the next one. So I think you get the idea. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's pretty much foolproof, I think. Let's see, this one's being a little bit stubborn. I think I tightened it on here a little too tight. It's hard to rotate. Don't need to really crank it down on here. You just want it enough so it won't move when you're spinning the drill bit on it. Wow. There we go. Come on. Alright, I'm going to mark this one. Now what could happen, if I take this off, my drill bit's running off. Stay here. Again, I don't think this is going to show up on camera because I don't have a nice state-of-the-art camera. Actually, that's a lot closer than I thought it would be, but that little mark is just slightly off of the line. But that's okay. When I center punch it, I'll bring that back over onto the line. That way the nut plate will be centered. It won't be twisted. So now I'll take my center punch, and I'll center punch these holes right on the black line, or these little indentations. I'll center punch those right on the black line. Drill it with the super small drill bit as the pilot hole, and then come back and drill each of these full size with the number 40. That will match perfectly with the nut plate, and then I can countersink this side for the flush rivet and then rivet the nut plates onto the back side. That's pretty much how I do the majority of the holes. Anything that needs to be on some kind of a center line, or anything that's got to be match drilled to another hole. I just set them up and run the drill down by hand. Alright, let me get these things drilled. So I have my holes drilled for the nut plates. These are drilled to size and they've been deburred a little bit. I like to use a little bit of cutting fluid anytime I use my micro stop. And I also like to use the micro stop on the slowest speed possible. So I've got my drill press on the slow speed, a little bit of cutting fluid. The other thing that I had done, I have a block of wood tall enough for this to rest on. And I put a nice, deep, large diameter hole just on the edge of it so that the hole for the nut plate can rest over top of that hole in the wood. And then as the micro stop does the countersink, the pilot on the micro stop won't dead end into the wood. It will go down into the hole. So I got my micro stop set up. I got this wire on just to keep the cage from spinning. And all I need to do now is just put the hole for the countersink over top of the hole in the block of wood, hold it together, and then do my countersink. That's it. Let me test fit that. I've got an extra long rivet. It's an extra long rivet I like to use just to fit check. And there it is. I'll continue to do that with all of these, and then it's on to riveting. Alright, so here we are with the Z brackets in place on the spar, and I've got the fuel tank baffle in place. And this is what the instructions tell you to do. They tell you to put the Z brackets on after you have them drilled, of course. You put them on the front side of the spar. And you put a single cleco. You can only put a single cleco in each one because at this point you only drilled one hole in the center of each Z bracket. So that's what you see here. And then of course this isn't going to focus, but now you want to double check. You should be able to see the line that you had drawn on the Z bracket. You should see that line centered on these holes. So if you've got that line centered on this hole here, and you can see it centered on this hole here, you know that this bracket is nice and straight. It's not twisted at all. And fortunately for me, just like my last wing, the left wing, my right wing has turned out perfect. I've got that black line that I had drawn on the Z bracket right down the center of each and every hole on this baffle. So of course, can't do any better than that. So I believe, I have to look at the instructions, but I believe now at this point, the next step is to go ahead and drill all these holes, match drill them using the baffle as a guide. Actually, no, that's not right. I'm going to obviously always refer to the instructions, but I believe the next step is to put the skin on. And I have to attach the skin to the baffle and then start working on attaching it and pre-drilling holes for the attachment on the leading edge. I don't know, some kind of combination of the two or three. Alright, let me reread and get cracking on whatever's next. Hey everybody, it's me again. I just wanted to say thanks for checking out my video. And like I said in the intro, if you find these videos helpful and useful and you're moved enough to want to in return help me with my project, my GoFundMe link and my Amazon wish list link is in the description of each of these videos. And again, if you do make a donation or a purchase, I'll add your name to this elevator skin and it will be displayed on my wall of honor at my hangar. So That's it. Thanks for coming by. I really do appreciate the donations, and hopefully when this aircraft is finished, we can meet in person, and I will be able to help you or anybody else who needs help with their project, and we'll see what happens. All right, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.